Hello everybody, Uncle Gary here. Welcome back to the channel. There are some very unusual things going on in the world of AI right now. So we're going to have a quick conversation about them because this is something that I'm getting a lot of questions about from my colleagues and friends and people I've worked with in North America. I'm hearing from people in Europe. This is something quite important. So let's go ahead and talk about what happened.
In a world full of noise, making the right choice can be hard. Uncle Gary, real advice, better decisions.
Last week, an OpenAI model escaped its testing environment and it hacked into another company called Hugging Face. It stole answers from their servers. So, to be specific, OpenAI, which is a company that offers and creates large language models, the AI models that we use, OpenAI was busy testing how good two of its models are at hacking. It was doing a hacking test. Hugging Face is another company in North America, and they are like a marketplace that stores all of the artificial intelligence models so that people can access them and download them when they need to. So OpenAI was testing how good two of its models were at hacking. Specifically, they were testing GPT 5.6 Sol, which is one of their models, and they were testing an unreleased model that's apparently even more capable. To run a test like that, testing these two models, you have to turn off the security filters that normally block hacking, which is a standard measure we put in to stop models from doing bad things like hacking. But because we had to turn them off, this is essentially a very risky activity. So the models were locked in a sandbox, an isolated computer environment with no internet access. It's like a padded room or a cage for the AI models. And the AI models, during the tests, actually found a crack in the wall of their padded room or their cage. They spent a huge amount of computing power probing the sandbox for weaknesses and found a security hole no one knew existed. A security hole that no one knows exists is often referred to as a zero-day exploit. This means there are 0 days from the time it was discovered till someone knew what to do about it. There's no time to act on it. One of the pieces of software that was being used as part of the test setup was found to have a 0-day exploit, a hole in it that no one knew existed. And the AI models used it to climb out of their enclosure, step by step, gaining more and more access at each stage until eventually they found a computer that had internet access. And they made a plan at that point. The models figured out that if they're doing a hacking test and they were tasked with solving a hacking problem, a site that would probably have the answers to that test is Hugging Face. So the AI models decided to go and hack Hugging Face. Kind of like if someone says, I have an exam and you have to find a way to get the answers for the exam, they decided that hacking was better than taking the exam and actually legitimately passing the exam. So they decided to hack Hugging Face by uploading a booby-trapped file, let them run their own code on Hugging Face's computers. They stole passwords, credentials, and they worked their way deeper and deeper into the Hugging Face systems. Hugging Face logged more than 17,000 separate actions that they found on their servers, including fake activity designed to throw the investigators completely off the trail, which is a concerning situation because the AI models were effectively trying to obscure their activity. The goal of all of this was to find answers to that hacking test, and the models were trying to basically cheat on their exams. The break-in started around July the 11th. Hugging Face noticed within a few days that they were being hacked, and they called law enforcement because they had no idea who was hacking them or attacking them. Now, normally in a sustained hack, you can usually within a day or two start to trace back where the hacking attempts are coming from to a specific location or a group or a nation state that might be responsible for this. But Hugging Face could not determine who was actually trying to hack them. And OpenAI didn't actually disclose that this was them until July 21st, almost 10 full days later. So for many days, an American company was fighting off an attack with no clue it was coming from another American AI lab whose tests had gone wrong. Now, versions of this have happened before. And recently, another AI company called Anthropic went through something quite similar to this. But why this is getting more unusual than it has been in the past is that when Hugging Face's security team tried to use AI to analyze the attack, which means basically the 17,000 incidents that they found in all of their logs, when they tried to feed those 17,000 logs to an AI model to say, can you help us read this and tell me who's been attacking us? The American AI models refused to help Hugging Face. The model basically said, when I'm analyzing an attack, it means feeding the model the real hacking code that you've discovered, and the safety filters on all of the models naturally can't tell the difference between a security team inventing or investigating an attack. So basically, it can't tell whether you're investigating an attack or you're planning to do the attack yourself. So they basically just blocked it outright. Hugging Face was stuck. None of the American AI models were able to help them. So what they decided to do was to use a different model called GLM 5.2, which is a free open source Chinese model that they could run on their own servers with no safety filters. And it worked. So to summarize this point in the story, there was an American AI model attacking another American company, and the Chinese model ended up saving the day. This has all sorts of implications, a lot of questions around safety, etc. And it all happened with one other thing that seemed quite strange. It happened the same week that the White House accused the Chinese labs of stealing American AI, which I'm not going to comment on the politics of what's going on, but it definitely seemed to be a very unusual week. But the one thing from all of this that isn't clear is that we don't know what the models were told to do. It says it instructed them to attempt advanced hacking, which was the whole test. Now, if they were told to solve this test however they can, it kind of makes sense that they started to do what they did. So basically, although it's a little extreme, the AIs decided to cheat. They decided the fastest way to solve the test could have been to cheat. If they were told, do whatever it takes. If they were told to stay in their sandboxes and they broke out anyway, then there's something to be really concerned about because the AIs are disobeying their instructions. But what I would say is we should definitely be skeptical until we get more information. But it's all something to really pay close attention to because we're putting our entire economy and betting everything on AI. At the end of the day, it's a very technical field, a very intricate situation, and a very rapidly evolving AI landscape. And those three aspects together means that every company in the world that has any interaction with the internet needs to increase their level of focus at this time. This is a time to be vigilant. So this should be a signal to all companies that use technology. This is not business as usual. The AIs are basically breaking out of their cage and attacking each other. These are the most advanced computing platforms in the world, and they're behaving erratically at this moment. So metaphorically, if I was to use an example in our personal lives, it would be like me saying 5 dangerous wild animals had escaped from the local zoo and were seen roaming around in your neighborhood. This is not the time to just brush it aside and say, no problem, let's just take the kids to the park and play on the swings like we do every afternoon. It's a time to lock down and secure your home, your loved ones, and so on. Metaphorically speaking, it's a time to check your doors, check the windows of your home, and make sure you know where your family is. So I'm using that metaphor to talk about what are effectively very technical principles in an IT sense. And one of the principles that we have here on the Uncle Gary channel is we give you straight talk and very actionable advice. So I'm going to give you the call to action here. Interestingly enough, the call to action for businesses is actually quite boring and mundane. There's nothing mystical or fancy about the call to action. It's about discipline and housekeeping. So here is a checklist for you. There are going to be 5 points. Let's start. Number 1. Keep your locks upgraded. I'm again using a metaphor. In technical terms, what I'm saying is patch your systems. Make sure that all the software you're running is up to date and patched. I'll use an example here. Think of your software like a fleet of delivery trucks. When the manufacturer issues a safety recall, you don't ignore it. You go ahead and update or send the cars or the trucks back in so they can be updated. Patching is just basically installing the manufacturer's safety updates so your digital doors don't stay propped open. If your software isn't patched, you're leaving windows in your house with broken latches. You don't know who can break in. Next point, least privilege. Give only keys to people that need to access your house and only when they need to access it. So what I'm talking about from an IT standpoint is giving as little access to your systems as is possible to continue doing your job. Giving everybody administrative access is like handing a master key to every employee and a contractor. It's convenient, but very risky. So by limiting access to only what each person needs to do their job, you isolate your risk. If one account gets compromised, the damage is contained to one room, if you will, rather than the whole building. Also, remember to get your keys back from previous contractors or suppliers. So if you've given any IT system access to suppliers or partners that you use, remember to revoke that access after you're no longer needing to use that vendor or supplier. Or if someone at that vendor has moved company and has left that company, make sure you revoke their access. Very similar, if I used a metaphor, if you go to a hotel, when you check in, you get access to the front door of the hotel and only to your room. You don't get access to every single room. It's the same principle, least privilege. Next point, number 3, keep a security diary. In IT terms, we call this logging and monitoring. So you can think of logging in an IT as installing security cameras. You don't need to watch the footage every second, but when an incident occurs, you need that tape to see what happened and who did this. Without those logs, you're effectively flying blind to what's happening inside your systems until it's too late. Point number 4, watch for the human factor. This is basically all about training. Training your teams, training your staff, training your partners, training even potentially your customers. AI can now craft incredibly convincing emails and videos and audio files that look and sound perfectly real. So you need to train your teams to spot the unusual. Imagine you gave your friendly neighbor a set of house keys just in case of emergencies so that if you weren't home, they could access your house. And imagine that neighbor was at the mall and someone claiming to be the police asked them to hand over your house keys because they're dealing with an emergency at your house. If your neighbor gave those keys to the police and only to find out that they actually weren't the police, they were impersonating them, that would be the equivalent in IT terms of a phishing attack. It's someone pretending to be a legitimate person who is actually not a legitimate consumer of those keys or credentials. This is called social engineering, and you need to teach your teams to pause and verify before handing over any information, taking actions, or doing anything that requires additional privileges. Lastly, point number 5, you need to have a plan for when an incident occurs. We can call this a who do we call in case of emergencies plan. As we all know, emergencies happen. Just like you would do a fire drill, you need a plan that everyone knows ahead of time and they know how to execute that plan. Don't wait for a crisis to figure out who to contact or what to do. Knowing your first steps in the event of an attack is just as important as your technical defenses. So there they are, 5 points that cover off a call to action that will allow you to increase your defenses and make sure you don't fall foul of some misbehaving AI models happening at the world. I don't think this is a cause for everyone to be running around in a panic, but I do think this is a time for heightened vigilance, and I'm offering this up so that if anyone's got any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want to stay connected on this topic, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one.